Have you ever been told that you just can't open a U.S. bank account without a social security number? It's a really common roadblock for folks new to the country, but trust me, it is not the end of the road. So today, we're going to break down exactly how you can get this done. So you're here in the U.S., you're trying to get your life set up, get paid, maybe rent an apartment, pay your bills, and every single application asks for that social security number you just don't have. Does that sound familiar? Well, you are definitely not alone. And look, it's totally understandable. It can really feel like you've run into a locked door right when you're trying to get your financial life off the ground. But the good news is, there's a key, and we're going to find it together. Okay, so here's the real problem, right? When you walk into a bank or you try to apply online, that standard form almost always has a required field for a social security number. It's just the default, it's their standard procedure, and it's what stops so many people right in their tracks. And this is the part that changes everything, it's not the only way. Federal regulations are actually way more flexible than those bank forms make it seem. And this is the secret that unlocks the entire process. So where does this flexibility come from? Well, it's all thanks to something called Know Your Customer, or KYC regulations. Basically, the government requires banks to verify who you are, mostly to prevent things like fraud and money laundering. And here's the key, the rule doesn't say they can only use an SSN to do it. They just need to be reasonably sure that you are who you say you are. And that little bit of wiggle room opens up a whole world of possibilities for us. So now that we know why this is possible, let's get into the how. We're going to look at 5 major U.S. banks that are known for having processes in place for applicants just like you. Think of these as the tools in your toolkit. All right, let's get a bird's eye view of our 5 main players. You can see right away how different banks are better for different people. Bank of America, for example, is often a great bet for international students. HSBC, on the other hand, is built from the ground up for global professionals. And Chase? Perfect if you need a massive network of ATMs. Think of this table as your cheat sheet to figure out where you should start. All right, let's dive in with our first option, Bank of America. You've probably seen them everywhere, right? They're one of the biggest banks in the country, and that means their main advantage is just pure convenience. Chances are there's a branch right near you, which makes it a really reliable first stop for a lot of people. So what are they going to ask for? It's a pretty standard trio, really. You'll need your valid foreign passport, that's for your main identity, then a secondary ID, which could be something like a driver's license from your home country, and finally, some kind of proof that you have a U.S. address. That could be a utility bill or a lease agreement with your name on it. Okay, so if Bank of America is all about being easy to find, our next option, Chase, is all about the network. If you're someone who travels a lot within the U.S. and you want to be able to find a branch or an ATM pretty much wherever you go, that is a huge, huge advantage. For Chase, the list looks pretty similar. Passport, proof of address, but there's one big difference. They usually want an ITIN. And what's an ITIN? Don't worry, we're getting to that in just a sec. But listen, here's a super important tip. For this process at Chase, you almost always have to go to a branch in person. Don't even bother trying online, it's just not going to work. So what exactly is an ITIN? Think of it this way. If you're required to file U.S. taxes but you aren't eligible to get a social security number, the IRS gives you this number instead. It stands for Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. And for some banks, it's the perfect substitute for an SSN. So what if you're thinking, great, but I don't have an ITIN yet? Well, that brings us to our next bank, Wells Fargo, which offers a different kind of flexibility, especially when it comes to the types of ID they might accept. Yeah, so along with your passport, Wells Fargo is known for being a bit more open to other forms of ID, like a valid student ID from your school. But what's really interesting here is their frequent acceptance of the Matricula Consular, which is an ID card issued by Mexican consulates. This is huge for a lot of people and makes Wells Fargo a fantastic option for many nationals from Mexico and Central America. All right, number 4 is Citi Bank, and this is where we bring in a whole new strategy. Using your global connections. If you already bank with Citibank back home, you're going to want to pay close attention because you might have a serious head start. Okay, so they're going to want your passport and proof of address. But here's the cool part, the global advantage. Sometimes that proof of address can even be from your home country. Why? Because if they already know you as a customer elsewhere in the world, it just makes the whole identity verification process so much smoother for them. And finally, we have HSBC USA. Now, these guys are really in a class of their own because they are specifically built for expats and global professionals. Their entire business model revolves around serving clients with international financial lives. So with HSBC, the checklist is a little different. Yes, you'll still need that passport, but they're really going to want to see the documents that prove why you're in the US. Your work visa, student visa, that kind of thing. It just makes sense since they're designed from the ground up for people whose financial lives cross borders. All right, we've gone through the big five. You've probably got an idea of which one might work for you. But hold on. Before you grab your keys and head to the bank, remember, preparation is everything. Let's run through a quick checklist to make sure you're set up for success. Just follow these 3 simple steps. First, find the exact local branch you plan to go to. Second, and I cannot stress this enough, this is the most important step, call them. Call that specific branch directly. Policies can and do vary, so you want to confirm exactly what they need right now. And finally, step 3, schedule an appointment. Seriously, this is a pro move. It guarantees you'll get dedicated time with a banker who can actually focus on your specific situation. Look, the main takeaway here is this. Even though it might feel like a huge challenge, opening a bank account without an SSN is totally doable. This isn't some secret loophole. There are actual pathways built into the system for exactly this scenario. With the right documents and just a little bit of prep work, you can get this done. So, as you can see, from Bank of America's sheer convenience to HSBC's global focus, there is a path forward for you. Now, the only question left is, which of these options is the right first step for your U.S. financial journey?